All right, guys, welcome back to episode 6 of Unorthodox Perspectives. And just me at the moment, guys. Leroy will be joining us in about hopefully 10 minutes or so. He's just got a few things to finish up. But I have my guest, Karon Hawkins, here. Karon, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just real quick, don't even sweat it. Everybody does it. It's Quran.
Karon.
Think of like the book, right? Like the Quran.
Okay. So I was actually beforehand Googled how do you pronounce your name, and then it was like different, like, so there was like the American, and then it was like English, and then anyway. So I do apologize.
All good, all good.
I am bad with names, but it's great to have you here. For those who don't know who you are, if you kind of dive a little bit into who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive into the conversation and a little bit about your story, and just have a conversation around work, as I know that you're in the health and fitness kind of space,
hmm
conversation around that.
Yeah, sure. So, again, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. Um, Not too long ago, you were on my show. I want to say it was actually a while ago. It's been a
Yeah,
minute.
it was.
But yeah, so my name's Karon Hawkins. I go by Coach Chronic on all social medias. And I'm an online coach. I specialize in biomechanical efficiency and you could say postural restoration, depending on what the person wants to do. Most people who come to us, fluidity, I'm speaking of, are either in pain or they want to move better, they want to live better, they want better posture, stuff like that. So it's all dependent upon what the client wants, but our system is centered around improving how the body moves and then
Mm.
making that movement residual so that you don't have to eventually think about it. But that's like way down the line. I'm on that way myself, but I'm from New York City, born and raised in Queens. Right now, I'm in Pittsburgh. I've been here for 5 years, 5 years, 4 years, something like that. I was working a corporate job in New York City after I graduated from Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, but I realized that the corporate life wasn't for me. So I applied to my master's degree in health and physical activity, kind of like an exercise physiology, public health hybrid with pieces from each. And I got in, and I quit my
Awesome.
job, and I pursued my dream of originally was becoming the next Sean T, who created the Insanity T25, hip hop abs, all that stuff. But it's evolved into something bigger than that. And my goal now is to just change the space of fitness and wellness and how people look at training, how people look at movement, and all the things that are in between that. Because there's a lot more complexities than just throwing a bar over your head or squatting ass to grass, if you will. A lot of different things that go
Mm.
into training, and I'm trying to open people's eyes to those things that I've discovered along my journey and obviously with my clients. And by the way, for the video, I'm changing furniture. So this is usually filled with books and stuff, but right now this is going to be completely different. So that's why everything's all empty. I don't want you guys to think my desk is just empty.
No worries,
Um,
man.
but
No
yeah, so
worries.
that's a
Awesome.
bit about me and my story.
Um, cool. So I do want to ask you, like, how quickly did you realize that corporate America wasn't for you? And then I want to come back to the posture thing for personal reasons, because my posture apparently is awful. So I want to talk to you about that. But let's kind of go back to the corporate America thing. How quickly did you, realize that?
Um, Took about a month.
A month.
I,
Okay.
I won't say that I was, super poor, but we didn't have much, but we had enough to get by. Obviously, I never had to worry about anything financially, but growing up and maturing and kind of picking up on things I know now that our mom was struggling, but just kind of never let me feel it or see it.
Mm.
So shout out to her. And for the first time in my life, I was, economically and financially independent, so I could kind of do whatever I want from that perspective. And that wore off in a month. The bliss of having,
Mm.
money wore off in a month when I realized that I was very unfulfilled with what I was doing.
Wow.
So, with that unfulfillment
Mm.
came the need for something greater, something more than what I was doing and what I was experiencing. So that's when I, reached out to First, I forgot to mention this, the sports medicine program I applied to at the University of Pittsburgh, and I got denied in a week. And then, I called the dean and I said, what do I have to do to get in? And she's like, you just don't have the requirements. There's so many classes and things you need to know. So she pointed me into the health and physical activity program in the School of Education. And that's kind of when I started making the transition. But I knew from a month in that corporate America wasn't for me.
And then how long did it take you to then kind of get out of that?
Yeah, so I decided to at least give it a year.
Right.
Partly was to make sure that I was sure about how I felt. Another reason was for my resume, kind of giving myself a back door. If things don't work out, I can at least point to a year of experience in cybersecurity, which would help if I needed to get another job. But ever since I quit, I never even, gave myself the option to, find another gig. It was like, all right, this is it. I got to figure this shit out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because when you said like a month, I was like, oh shit, like real quickly. Like, so for me, it was just probably like a year. I was like realized it, but it was like over time. So like gradually, like just going through that kind of like same process, like waking up, work at 9, and then just like being there and just like hating what I was doing, and then just over time, just like that building up. So for you, you realized that pretty quickly, and then started to take actions to kind of get out of there ultimately.
Right, right. I mean, it definitely got worse, as you said, over the months. Got way worse, but I just kind of stuck with it, and I saved a bit of money so I'd have something to work with when I went back to school. But ultimately, I knew that I was not made to sit at a desk and work on a computer for the rest of my life. So yeah, it wasn't happening.
Awesome. Mentioned that with kind of fitness and movement and that, like, there's more to it. So if we kind of dive a bit more into that, kind of what did you kind of mean by that, and that our kind of listeners and that need to be aware of ultimately?
Yeah. So when it comes to movement, there's so much intricacy that people neglect. So you go to a bar and pick it up, like you're doing a deadlift or you're doing a squat or something like that. There's so many pieces that are moving, and there's so many things that need to be in place to do that movement efficiently. So the efficiency scale is the force production in relation to where the load of that force is distributed. So, force production would be, you're squatting and then you're standing up. Like how much force can you produce to move that weight? If it's enough, you can move it. If it's not, you're gonna, obviously gonna fall. And when you're producing that force, we want to make sure that force is distributed amongst as many places as possible so that you're not overloading one space. So we essentially want to make sure that one space of your body, when joints, muscles, whatever, connective tissues aren't doing too much and some aren't doing too little. But we find that a lot of us have places that are doing way too much, and they'll do it because your body's going to adapt to it. But it doesn't mean just because you adapt, that means that it's fine, everything's okay. Because your body has one job in terms of your nervous system. It's meant to survive. So survivability is the number one, biological imperative we have. It's obviously so we can reproduce and create bloodlines and generations and continue on your legacy, if you will. Now, when you're just walking, gait analysis, or how we walk or run as bipedal organisms, is very, very important. I think gait is one of the easiest ways, or how we walk again, how we run. It's one of the easiest ways for us to see what compensations lie within our body, how we're stepping, how we're kicking off, how we're holding our shoulders, etc. And all this is residual. We would never want someone to try and posture and do it. We want to just watch them walk like to the store, or how they look when they're having a conversation with their friends, or sitting down doing work, or whatever. We don't want them to be aware that we're watching, because when you have awareness that someone's watching, you're gonna like try and change things. And just because you can actively change your posture in the moment doesn't mean that your actual posture. Residual posture is what it is when you're not paying attention, and that's often the best scope we have to see what exactly is going on. Um, if when you walk, your ankle collapses, or your knee collapses, or your left shoulder is higher than your right, or your neck is forward, like these are things that show us inefficiencies. It shows us that something isn't doing its job right. Something is just not well prepared to do its job. So with mobility, we look at that scope and we start to piece together what parts of your body need to work better. And the main thing we need first is stability at the middle. So you see people rib flare, where their ribs are popping out of their stomach when they put things over their head, or when they're benching, or even squatting. Sometimes you see people's knees collapse. You see their heads go forward. You see their spines get flat. We've heard flat back 20 billion times. All these things they're a show of dependency, and dependency specifically in the low back. So what we want to do first is get you out of your low back. The best way we can do that is to establish stability, or prevent movement of the lower back, by increasing your core stability. So core stability in this sense is going to be your trunk. So basically your torso. We want to make sure that your rib cage, which is here, and your pelvis, which is under it, are lined up. So oftentimes the rib cage looks like this, where it's pushed forward. That's the bottom of the rib cage is flared out, and the pelvis is the other way. So you have here and here. Have you heard of anterior pelvic tilt?
No.
Basically, where your pelvis is tilted this way and your low back has a huge arch in the back of it. That's APT. So APT, again, anterior pelvic tilt. We have this tilt here, and then the rib cage is going to go the opposite way, posterior pelvic tilt, because they're going to balance each other out. Either they're lined up and balanced, or they're opposite and balanced. And we're trying to reestablish that realignment through breath. So the breath is going to be one of the most important things. Learning how to breathe, learning how to engage your diaphragm and your transverse abdominis, which are your deep core muscle that you can't touch with crunches and rotating and throwing balls and all that. You have to blow and breathe and exhale harder and harder and harder over time to create that lineup and pull everything tighter. It's basically, to put things simply, when you don't have core stability, you're basically an open Coke can. You can be crushed, easily. But when you have core stability, you're a closed, pressurized Coke can that cannot be crushed. You'd have to exert over 500 kilograms of force to even start to move that Coke can when it's closed. So we're trying to build that in the body, essentially. So that's sort of an overarching concept of flowability, and what I mean when people don't look at the details, because no one has that. No one has that. You look all over social media, you're going to see flat backs. You're going to see big waists. You're going to see low backs that are dumping like this. People are sitting and squatting into their sacrums or their tailbones, and it's just destroying people's spines.
Yeah. So, so when we kind of was booking the podcast and that, I remember you in kind of the topic section, obviously talking about, where it says what topics you want to talk about. And you mentioned obviously posture and that. And obviously with the theme of the show, Unorthodox Perspectives, you were saying like, that's very unorthodox, right? So kind of the question then is, why is it unorthodox? If this kind of is going to help people to realign, that core, and then probably have greater benefits, with their quality of life. Like, you're more obviously totally more in this space than I am. Are other PTs or are other people in the space teaching and sharing something different? What is it that's making this kind of out there and unorthodox than that?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to my Instagram and you just kind of look at what I'm doing, most people are like, "The hell's going on?" You know what I mean? One of our foundational movements is sitting. Like, people demonize sitting all the time, and we sit a lot, but it's how we're doing it that makes it different. How we're looking at sitting, and how we're looking at training the hips and training the core. No one does it like we do, and that's why it's unorthodox. There's like 4 or 5 people in the world that know how to do what we do at a very deep level. And, I'm one of them, but I barely know. I know maybe 20% of the system. But I'm working on obviously learning more and training more myself, just so I can continue to help people and spread the word and all that. But the main reason it's unorthodox, man, is because most people come to our page and say, "What are y'all doing? Like, are y'all even doing anything? Are you even training? Like, why are you sitting? Why are you just hinging? Where's the weights?" That's what a
Yeah.
lot of people ask.
Right.
Like, where's the weights? Where's the weights? And I've made changes to my body that are unprecedented, without touching a single weight. I haven't lifted a weight in like 8 months. Haven't touched one. Haven't touched a weight, a kettlebell, none of that. And my body it looks completely different. It's like you don't even know how it's possible. I don't know. I didn't know how it was possible for a while.
Yeah.
Anybody can go on my Instagram and just look and just
Yeah.
watch me move and watch my hamstrings, watch my upper back, watch my core, watch my waist. Like all these things are changing every day, every week, and people don't know how to do it. And obviously they ask questions and things like that, but you know, we can only answer so much because you have to immerse yourself into the system to really understand it. And we're not saying that other systems are bad or good or whatever. We're just saying that for health and for postural restoration and realignment, this is the way to do it.
And how did you like start to come across uh like now what you teach, and was you a bit skeptical when you first started it? I'm kind of interested in that, and then obviously you immersed yourself into it and now help people to do the same.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I definitely have my doubts. The first time that I learned about flowbility was inviting the creator. His name is Jordan Etner at Flowbility on Instagram. Subtle plug. He came on my show and the Chronic Lifestyle, the one that you were on, and I interviewed him about it. And I was like, "Hey, man, like, I believe all these things to be true." At the time, I was practicing FRC and joint rotation and understanding capacity of the joints at a very specific and like piece by piece level. And he kind of shattered all that and said, like, none of that shit matters in layman's terms. Um, he painted the picture for me so well, and I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'll just try it.
Mm.
Let's just see what happens. And I tried to do both systems. I tried to keep lifting. I tried to do all these things, and I was seeing results for sure. But then I did an experiment. I said, for a month, I'm not going to do anything but flowbility. I'm going to prove this guy wrong. I'm going to show him that I can still lift. I can still do all these things. And in a month, my results just skyrocketed. Crazy. I was seeing crazy changes, and I was like, oh shit, maybe there is something to this.
Mm.
So, we don't encourage people to jump into it and just like cut everything out originally, or initially, I should say. We encourage people to take their time with immersing themselves in the system. And if they can just do flowbility, bro, their results are going to be insane. Excuse me. But we also understand that people, have things they like to do. People like to run, like to lift, like to do,
Yeah.
whatever they're doing. So, we don't say that that stuff is bad. We don't say this is that. We just let them do their thing. And when they're ready, and if they're ready, um, they'll come through and they'll just do flow. But, we encourage people to do whatever they want while they're doing flow. Just make sure flow is dominant. So I definitely have my doubts at first. However, just through my own experimentation with myself and my clients, big changes. And I've never looked
Mm.
back since.
Amazing. Awesome. So I'm definitely going to look into this for myself. So I kind of have posture problems with like my shoulders and my neck. At times, I could kind of, I think mostly. So I'm spend quite a lot of time like editing videos and everything. So
Right.
I'm definitely going to like look into it for myself. So that's why I was kind of curious, and I think it'd be real valuable for our listeners as well to start to bring like awareness to these things that are actually going to help them and serve them as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I'm like you. I edit a lot of videos. I sit a lot too. I'm constantly writing emails and doing social media posts, uploading, editing videos. I mean, I get it. And I used to have a ton of issues with sitting for super long. But again, now that I've learned how to do it a lot better and my muscles are stronger and hold better, like right now I'm sitting and I'm good. Like I'm sitting on what's called your sit bones, which are your ischiums, and specifically it's called the ischial tuberosity, which is kind of the very point of the sit bone under your pelvis. If you just Google sit bone, you'll see what I mean. We're meant to sit on those. But if you look at where your sacrum is on the skeleton, the tailbone, and just kind of have the pelvis right next to it or in front of it, technically, you're going to see that a ton of people sit on their tailbone. And if you understand how biomechanics work, or torque and lever arms and all that, you know that the biggest angle where you're sitting that's where the load is, or I should say the smallest angle technically. So where there's a lot of rounding or a lot of flexing, that's where a lot of the angle is, right? You think about when you flex a bicep, like that peak contraction point, there's a lot of force right there, a lot of load there. If I bend over and I'm trying to pick up a barbell, there's a lot of force, quote unquote, in my hips. But if you look at people when they deadlift, a lot of the rounding is in their lower back, and that's where all the force is going. And their glutes are getting tighter because you're teaching your body to curl here as opposed to curling here from the hips. So if where my wrist is where my hips are, and where like the middle of my palm is where my low back is, most people are trying to do this, but they're really doing this,
right?
Where they're rounding a lot in their lower back.
And I know you mentioned kind of your Instagram, and I will link that down in the description there. So guys, definitely go and check that out, because I'm sure there's a lot of tips over there. But do you have any like practical beginning steps for people, if in terms of like for them to start, and then they can check out your Instagram or go to your website or DM you if they want to kind of learn more?
Yeah. So you can start. I can give you our free mini series, and that'll allow people to get started for free. It's a complete workout. You'll be sweating, I promise you. It's gonna be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life, but it'll feel very good after you. You'll feel good after you train. You won't feel like you just got hit by a truck. And I'll also give people a discount code if they're interested in getting the app that we have, and it'll give them entrance to our private Facebook group, where they can post videos for form checks and all that stuff if you want to become a part of our community. That's another big thing about when you start Flow. When you invest in Flow, obviously, you join a community. And we got 200 people in a group right now getting busy, doing Flowbility, posting often, and we're commenting, we're giving them feedback. And, like we were training them, but we're not even training them. People are getting results without us even training them, like crazy results. So I'll give you the discount code for that too, if you're really interested. But I mean, in general, like the best way to start is just awareness. What are you actually using? Like you mentioned, what are you actually using? What are you bending over with? What are you reaching with? What is doing all the motion? If you really look and just record yourself just bending over and picking up something, the biggest rounding or the biggest thing on your body is going to be your waist and your low back. And that's where all the load's going.
Okay. That makes sense. And so is this like the main thing that you use as well to like keep fit in that? Or do you play sports as well? Or do you go do running as well? Or is this the main one? The main thing?
I mean, Flowbility is all I do from a training perspective. We incorporate sprints, we incorporate, athletic movements, lateral walking. Like if anyone's familiar with like a band walk, where you put a band around your knees and walk to the side to work on your glutes. We do that, but it's in a very, very different way than most people do it. And I do like sports. I mean, I play sports. I play basketball. I throw footballs. I run, I sprint, I do all these things. But the main piece of what I do is Flowbility for all intents and purposes. What's up, Leroy?
How's it going, man? How's it going? Sorry, guys, I'm late, man. I was caught up with another appointment.
No worries, man. No worries. We're just having
man.
A conversation, and unorthodox, obviously, because of the show, about posture. About posture, and like health, fitness, and a technique. Is it a technique or like a practice?
We can call it a practice.
Yeah, a practice.
Yeah, we can call it a practice.
Called called flow, right?
Flowability, yeah.
Flowability, yeah. So yeah, we're just kind of having that conversation. Have you ever heard of it, Leroy?
No. I was really interested, actually. Nice to meet you again, Karen. Nice to meet you, man. Where you coming from again?
I'm from New York City, but I'm in Pittsburgh right now.
Okay, nice, man. Nah, like I had a chance to have just a quick listen just before I jumped in while I was getting ready, and I was hearing some of the things you're talking even about the sitting postures that we have and how what you do at the gym when you're and it's quite interesting in itself. Like there's those minimal details that we hardly ever think about in our daily living
Yeah.
that can impact us in so much in giving us more life and health in our bodies that like without any knowledge of it, it's very difficult to actually. You always find something that you always have a problem with, but having that little switch can actually help you quite a lot. So I was interested when I read your profile. Yeah, man, that's great work you're doing.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it, man. Really appreciate it. I mean, just like you said, people don't understand or really get what's going on with their bodies. People don't know where their spine is. They don't know where their hips are. They don't know anatomy. You know what I mean? People need to learn about the body they walk around in. A lot of us just kind of live day to day and do our jobs and do our thing, which is fine. I just think that it's important to understand the meat bag you live in. You know what I mean? Like what's actually inside you? Like what makes up your body? What makes up your physiology? What makes up your anatomy? I truly believe that people need to take time just to learn more about their body at a very deep level. And these little things, they add up over time. I didn't speak about this Luke earlier, but when we're born, we start adapting. It's right from birth. We're constantly adapting for survival. The brain is constantly looking for stability and security and safety because your nervous system has one job, and that's to keep you alive, to keep you surviving. It doesn't care if you want to play basketball, if you want a six-pack, if you want to deadlift 400 pounds. It does not care about that. It is simply trying to find the most efficient way possible to get you from point A to point B, to feed you, to reproduce, and to survive. So those are like the three biggest things that your body cares about and your brain cares about. So there's a lot of different ways that manifests. We didn't really get to pain and dysfunctions just yet. I don't know if you were going to ask about that, Luke, but I can kind of segue into that.
Please do. Yeah. That'd be good.
We see people often with like tightness and pain and dysfunctions and all types of weird things that they don't really understand why they're happening. And I want to preface with saying we don't really understand pain. We don't understand the nervous system altogether 100% at all. There are certain things that happen in the nervous system, and we're just like, how did that happen? Like you'll get an input and an output, but there's so many different pieces in between those two, things, the input and the output, that we have no idea about. Like we have no idea. People compare the brain to a computer, but that's honestly an insult. Because the brain is so freaking advanced and complex that we don't even know what's going on. You know what I mean? So I wanted to just preface with that. We understand enough about pain and the nervous system to help people and to educate people about, some of the basics. There's obviously a lot of very minute details that are getting into, the deeper things with the scientific community and research and how we're studying it. But I'll keep it as simple as possible. When we're seeing pain, dysfunction, tightness, joint issues, it's all a protective mechanism. So your body and your brain has a certain threshold of issues that it'll take. So like, dysfunctions it'll handle, whether you're overusing something too much. At a certain point, your body's going to make you stop, whether it be limiting mobility through what's called neurological tightness, where your brain is halting. So, people try to stretch their hamstrings, but they just can't after a certain point. That's an example of neurological tightness. Granted, the person doesn't have any what's called mechanical issues or mechanical tightness with like, bone deformities, injuries, or actual, acute issues at the point of the lengthening that's preventing that lengthening. Because if you have an injury and your body is like aware that something is torn and damaged, it'll give you a lot of different things to stop you from trying to further that injury. And we've all experienced that, right? You sprain your ankle, get super swollen, you can't really move it. Your brain's like, all right, we ain't touching that for a while. We're gonna let that just kind of chill for a minute. It's not gonna let you, try to roll your ankles more. It's gonna make you stop. So that's another example. We see immobility, we see tightness, and then finally we usually see pain manifest in some place. Now, pain is a very tricky thing, as I said before, because it's sort of like it's a nasty cycle. Using the sprained ankle example, you sprain your ankle, so you don't move your ankle for a while. It hurts, it gets swollen, it gets blue and red, depending on the how bad the injury is, and then you don't move it for a while. So your brain has what's called a sensory map cortex, technically, which is how it looks at and how it maps out certain joints in your body. So based upon adaptation, how you live your life, your brain has an understanding of how these joints move in space. So for instance, your hand, which you can do many different things. We have artists, we have musicians, we have martial artists, we have so many different things that the hand can do, right? But the map of between my brain and my hand is much more complex than like my elbow, right? My elbow, it's like, okay, we can do that. That's kind of it. But with your hand, there's so many different things in your fingers, right? So you're always using this. So your brain knows what your hand can do, and you can teach it to do things, but you can't really teach your elbow to do that many different things than kind of what it does. Now, when you get injuries, right, you start to lose some of that mapping. You start to lose some of the routes and how your brain pictures these joints. So when you roll your ankle, if you're not moving as much, meaning you're not getting contact with the ground through your foot, you're not teaching your brain, hey, I can rotate, hey, I can do these things. And your brain starts to kind of forget how to do these things. It starts to forget what this map looks like in real time, especially when you start to wear like high heels, high platform shoes with very big arches that, make more space between your foot and the ground. Your brain starts to forget what your ankle and foot look like, and it kind of just looks at it as like a block or like a brick. That's why when people have really tight toes and they can't, because they're not using them. If you don't use it, you lose it. So when you get injuries and pain, you stop using it. So your brain, remaps it as something different. But because you're in pain, you can't remap it. So you put a boot on, and then you walk around in that boot, and you kind of forget how to use it. It feels better. You start to use it, then you hurt yourself again. So you stop using it. Can you see the cycle? What I'm saying? It's a constant cycle of pain and dysfunction that leads to more pain and dysfunction. So it's complex in that we don't really know sometimes how to fix these issues because we keep hurting ourselves and making these symptoms worse and making that mapping process much more clouded and distorted. So that's the biggest issue with pain. It prevents us from doing things. And on the other side, sometimes those injuries are completely healed, but the brain gets used to feeling that pain and it gets used to sensitizing the spinal cord to deliver that pain. So then you run into the case where there's nothing wrong at all, but because you're so used to feeling pain in that area, you can feel that trauma trigger from many different things. It can be emotional, physical, mental. Pain is manifested in the brain and the nervous system, equally across all different methods. Whether someone punches you in the face or you lose a loved one, or it's all pain, and it all manifests the same way. So I'll give you a story to kind of paint that picture. I love this story. There was a man, I think he was either doing construction work or maybe he was walking. I don't know the exact context, but he stepped on a nail and it pierced his boot. And he started screaming in pain. Oh my God, my foot hurts. And they took him to the hospital. They cut the boot off, and the nail didn't even pierce his foot. Didn't even touch his skin. Nothing. There was no actual piercing of the nail through his foot. But he anticipated the pain. his spinal cord was ready to feel that pain and absorb it and know what to do with it. And basically it was saying, hey, this is probably going to happen. So we need to tell him this is bad. Pain. All right, get the hell out. But when he went to the hospital, there was no actual issue. There was no damage. There was no anything. So pain can be something that you bring upon yourself in that scenario because you anticipate it. It's another example. It's like if you had an electric stove that glowed red when it was super hot. And, for 10, 15 years, every time that stove glowed red, you'd know it's hot. I can't put my hand there. Maybe you were, 3 years old and you burned your hand on the stove. Now you're 25 years old. Someone broke the electric stove and they put a red flashlight under the stove. They turn the stove on and your hand's there and that red light starts glowing. You're going to, oh my God. Oh, wait, there's nothing wrong. You're conditioned to believe that when the stove is red, it's hot and it gives you pain. So you feel pain and pull away. So it's all about how our body understands what's going on in space, how we've adapted to certain things around pain, dysfunction, etc. So it's like I said, it's very, very complex and there's many different avenues that can create pain and dysfunction. But ultimately, we have to start, as I said at the very beginning, with reestablishing our point of stability, which is at our middle, through the ribcage and pelvis alignment that we spoke of earlier, Luke, through the breath, through understanding how to breathe, through understanding how to regain that stability so that the brain can essentially feel secure and safe. I know that was a really long spiel.
Yeah, I love it.
Whatever questions or follow-ups you got, let's bring them.
Yeah, I really had a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm just kind of conscious on time. So we've got about 10 minutes max left with you, man. But yeah, Leroy, do you have any questions or follow up on that? And I'll keep an eye on the time.
No, I would just probably just like a little summary of that sort of like that breathing, centering, stabilization you were saying that you spoke on, just to like, I guess, summarize it for all of us, I guess, with others as well who've just joined us. Like, what is that you basically unorthodoxly, like in your unorthodox way, are sharing your perspective with others to better their lives. So like, to me, somebody who's just heard you again for the first time, what is that exercise that I can just start in a simple way to, I guess, lead me into that flow? Like,
Yeah,
I don't know
sure. So,
yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense. So I told Luke about this earlier. I'm going to give you guys a free mini series, again, for free. I know financial times are hard with the global pandemic going on. So, I'm not going to, breathe down people's necks to pay money yet. If they want to invest, they can after the mini series. And I'm going to give a discount for the app that gives access to our Facebook group and all that. And the mini series will give you a pretty comprehensive look at, like, I would say 5% of the program. And you'll understand kind of the foundations and the basics. But real quick, this is something that I've tried on different podcasts. I want to try it with you guys. So, you want to experience what it feels like to kind of start to realign. We can do that right now. So
Okay,
you might want to mute your mics. You might want to mute your mics because I'm going to have you exhale super loud and I want to blow your earphones out. But what I want you to do, guys, I want you to just take a big inhale through your nose as long as you can, as deep as you can. Just breathe. Inhale, 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 inhale. As much as you can. Yep, keep going, keep going. Now, when you exhale, you're going to act like you're blowing through a straw and you're trying to hit the other side of the room. So blow, 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 blow as hard as you can. And just keep exhaling. Keep blowing, keep blowing, keep blowing. Harder, Luke. Blow, 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 blow. And as you exhale, you're going to start to feel your core light up, like around your belly button. Keep blowing, keep blowing, keep blowing. Even when you're empty and don't feel air coming out, you're going to continue blowing. Now, do another inhale, super deep. Put it into your belly for now. You won't do this when you're training, but for now, just for the sake of the podcast, you're going to do that. Inhale through your nose. Make sure you inhale through your nose. And now exhale through your mouth. Act like you're blowing air into a tire. Keep blowing, keep blowing, keep blowing, keep blowing. You're going to, again, feel your core start to light up even more. Now, keep going. When you're completely empty, just take just a tiny little inhale, and then blow harder, harder. Again, when you're empty, tiny little inhale, blow as hard as you can again. And you're going to feel like it tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. That's that TVA in your diaphragm creating that pressurized Coke can. That is the way to achieve core stability. And you're going to do that 1,000 times, obviously within the system. You can unmute yourself now, but
Okay. Awesome.
That's like a little taste.
You know, I'm gonna practice that. You know, like, oh, that is powerful. Anybody can do. Oh, that's powerful. You know, from everything you said, from what I've heard, like, and if I think of what we're trying to do here at Unorthodox Perspective, is that for me, I'm more of a thinker. So I'm a deep thinker. So I'll dive into a subject to a point where I really want to get to the root of it. And from what I heard you say, it's almost like you are doing this in a physical form. You're trying to enable people to dive into themselves physically, you know, not just going to the gym, eat healthy, but actually dive into yourself physically and realize there is depth in in your physical aspect. Just doing that exercise, I felt that, like, you know what I mean? Like, I went past the wall almost. You know? But yeah, man, thanks a lot, man. I really enjoyed that. I really did.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Definitely try the mini series. You'll love it.
I will, man. I will. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. I will link that all in the description. Before we wrap up here, obviously with time, and I think in Leroy, if we kind of stay on as well, and then we can just finish up the episode, then we'll let our guest go. Final thoughts. Do you have any final thoughts or words of inspiration for our listeners so they can go away and obviously, you know, grab the series in that? But yeah, I'm just kind of interested if you have final thoughts in that.
Yeah, sure. So I think the biggest thing, I get a lot of people that have tried everything. They've gone to PTs, they've gone to chiros, they've gone to every single thing, massage therapy, you know, chiros that are promising they're going to realign their shit. Like, you can't use passive methods to, you know, achieve active results. You can't just crack your body into place. Your brain needs security, it needs stability. And the only way you're going to do that is by training and working at it. You know, the massage therapy helps and the chiro stuff helps, but you have to do it. You got to do the work. And, you know, the people that come to me that have tried everything, they used to be athletes, they used to run, they used to jump, they used to throw, they used to do all these things, and they were told that they can never do any of that stuff again because they're basically broken. And you're never broken. There's always time to get things back into place and, you know, just build yourself into a way of living that's not in a confined bubble. So try the mini series. If you're really serious about it, just do it every day for a month. You'll be a brand new human being. Like, just fucking do it every day, and you'll feel so damn good. And then of course, reach out to me with any questions you have.
Amazing, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you can send me the link, because I think you sent the link for like your Instagram and that. So if you can send all the links, I will link that all in the description.
Absolutely.
And yeah, just thank you so much. Appreciate it. Absolutely.
Hey, thank you guys for coming on. I'd love to do a part 2 or have you guys on my show for the next time around. But we'll be in touch. But I got to run, guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
No worries. Take care, man.
See ya.
Awesome. Leroy, your thoughts?
Hey, man, that was hey. Just the exercise alone. I guess like I was saying to him, like just the take on what he said, like it does sort of like give you another dimension of thought. Like, and actually enables you as well. Like, you're now able to practice those certain things that you may talk about your mind. You know, we're always talking about, you know, your mind, everything, your mindset. From what he's saying, it's like even by your body as well, practicing discipline. You cannot just discipline your mind. In disciplining your body and, you know, doing those exercises that enable you to just give yourself some balance, feel yourself in a balance. I mean, doing that, I don't know about you, but I can still feel my core. Like, it's got this, and it's good. It feels good. You feel lighter. So I guess there is a lot, man. There is a lot out there we don't know, and I guess having people like Karon, giving us that different perception, like, that was eye-opening. How about you, man? What do you think?
It was, and I'm definitely going to check out his stuff, because I have so I've always had like shoulder problems and and everything, like neck problems and crap. So I'm definitely going to check that out, just for like obviously myself and that. And I've been to like physio and that, and I think it's like helps to that certain point, but then I've kind of realized that things, kind of going off topic, things kind of come into your life at the right time, I feel. And I feel like this for me is kind of been brought more aware of it at just the right time, if that makes sense. And it's funny because I've known him for about probably a year now. And I went on to his podcast first, and then I like promised to get him on mine, and then things just kind of got in the way. We were going to bring him on to the one that I was doing before with obviously Arsenio. So I just think like things come into our lives at the right time, and I just want to like encourage our listeners as well to start to take action on some of this, grab the resources that he's going to provide, because I think it's just from going through that exercise is going to help a lot of people. So yeah, there was in the 40 odd minutes or so we had, like there was a lot there, like his, I don't know how much kind of you caught before you jumped on, but even like his journey in itself of like getting into this, and like how, first off was skeptical as well, probably like our listeners are, but had that open mind to actually, I want to try something different, and I think again that's something that I'm coming across more, is like if we're not happy or if we're not where we want to be with the results that we're getting, to go out there and to try something different, because it's in that something different that I think that we can grow as well. So a lot there. Hopefully that makes sense, man. Yeah.
No, it's true. Like if something is not working, go out there and try something differently.
You got it.
Yeah, it's like what you were saying. I think, if you keep repeating the same thing that causing you pain to yourself, like it's a cycle. You're not moving anywhere forward, but you're doing the same thing over and over again. So you may be doing the same thing for 1 year over 10 years, and 10 repeated lessons over each other. But if you try 10 different things, you don't know, you might find 5 out of that to be something that's gonna work out, or but I hear that, man. I hear that.
And he mentioned a key point. I don't know if you caught that as well, around like awareness. Like, so now people, if they listen to this or watching on YouTube or Facebook, wherever they're tuning in or will be tuning in, and it's like, for me, having these types of conversations, right? Sharing things that are working for other people, sharing things that are different, that aren't things that most people are aware of, but are out there, like other solutions to people's challenges, and that, whether it is physical or even like mental, or if it's kind of, on a spiritual level, or like whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like that's a part, I feel like, of what we're doing, is sharing, of bringing that awareness to it, because again, like through that awareness and through that trying to something different, you can change, you can move forward, and you can better yourself, better your life and everything.
That's true. I guess it's like what you just said, and we're just sharing, I guess, somebody is on awareness with somebody who may not be aware of that, and however that impacts somebody's life, that's your take from what we are just sharing. So I think that's powerful, man. I'm just grateful, man. Thank you for inviting me on this journey, man. I'm gonna meet a lot of people. I was just thinking that after, you know what I mean? Like after Justin, I was thinking like, right, there's quite a lot of people out there who are doing so many things that are unorthodox, and it's all about just finding and just meeting and finding them. You know what I mean? And just sharing their story, and that's what it is. We just sharing people's story and just talking about it, in our own way. But yeah, man, that's good. Yeah.
Sure. And I also think, like, because it's not in the mainstream type thing, because I don't know about you. Like I said, I've had some, like, obviously with shoulders and neck and everything, some of those like physical challenges as well. And so like more like you just go to the doctor, it's like physio, like people in that sense, just imagine like how many people could get help through, I'm just going to call it flow. I forgot the full name of it, but let's just call it flow for these purposes. But like, this doesn't get shared like in the mainstream system, like in the status quo, in like day-to-day life. And so again, I'll repeat myself, it's about that awareness, because there's so much more out there for people, and so it's bringing that awareness to that, and so I think it's the same with like more personal growth, personal development, kind of just all of it, like there's so much more out there. Then I kind of go into a place of why isn't it spoke about, or like the reasons why behind it, and trying to like find that, because if it actually helps people and if it actually serves people, then why aren't we talking about this more? Like, why isn't doctors or whoever sharing this, and so many other things, like not just with what Karon shared today. Yes, sorry, go on.
No, I'm just like being like, why is it these methods are not researched more, in the mainstream, like, because pretty sure they would actually find out even way better ways to apply those methods, So it's
100%.
Yeah, but continue, man. I'm listening. Continue.
And I was just gonna say, like, it's not just with what our guest shared today. Like there's so many just other things that can serve and help people, but aren't spoke about, whether it's like just in our more mainstream or status quo systems, And so I think that's the fascinating thing of when you realize that and then start to take action kind of out of that. I think if you think of like the status quo, like the mainstream of kind of like a circle or a box or kind of like a shape or like whatever, and so many people like play kind of like in that shape, but then there's life outside of it. Ultimately, that's kind of like how I think of it, and I think you can start to see life outside of it when you start to be more proactive in connecting with more people and just start to ask questions. I feel like people are just so afraid of questioning things and asking questions like, okay, so why do you do that, or why is it this way, or like they just kind of play within the circle or the square or within the lines, and don't go outside of it. I just think things like Karon shared today just for me highlights it, so that would be some of my like final thoughts on this.
So you really feel like it did really have an impact for you as well on a personal level then, innit?
Yeah. And I think it's kind of like that. I mean, look, that's the whole point of why I wanted to start the show with you, man, is because I've been thinking about things like this and things that we've shared on the show in the first 6 episodes, or first 5 episodes, and this is the 6th one, that I've kind of been thinking about. And so like with this platform, sharing them more, like when we spoke about in episode 2 about the average life of like a 20-year-old, like I think about that constantly. Like young people go through that cycle of living for the weekend, getting drunk, pissed up, regretting it Monday morning, doing something they hate in the week, whether that's going to uni because their parents told them to, or like all these other different things, and then the cycle just repeats. And it's like, well, why? And I think a huge part again of this show is like asking those questions of like, well, why are we doing it this way? Like, why is that like that? Just asking questions, and just bringing more awareness to things,
I think with that, I would really ask anybody who listens to us if they ever have any question really like that they may have ever thought of, and never really, voiced out, like, shout it out to us, send us a message and have us talking about it, and hopefully we can draw out people who can also answer that and have a conversation over something that we may all be wondering, going. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, Nah,
Awesome.
I like this, man. I like this.
So before we wrap up, do you have anything that you would like to share? Obviously, you jumped on later, so don't know if you had anything from your week you wanted to share or to quickly discuss, or
Nah, I think I'll leave. I think I'll leave everything that's been said already. You know, I think
okay.
it's perfect. They've already had enough of me. You know, they're gonna hear of me next week again.
Yeah. So
But
next week we have another guest. Called Jordan.
okay.
Jordan Hiley, I think his name is. Just having a quick look. And that one's going to probably be very unorthodox because it's a conversation that many people do not like to have. And actually, it's funny. I had a podcast yesterday for another show that I do, and the topic was around that as well. But Jordan is, I think, a money coach or finance coach. So obviously, not a lot of people like to talk about money. And so I think like that's going to be another unorthodox, an interesting one. Just from the conversation I had yesterday, and then we will wrap up. Again, that was on another show, but it was with another coach who kind of deals with money and helping people with their finances and that. And I must have took like, well, so many notes, and again, it got brought to my awareness at, I think, like the right time. It was a lot about investing, and something that from an event I went to in November, it got brought up at that event. But at that event, it was like very. I think like I left the event like confused by it, if that makes sense. Like, well, where do I start now? But through the conversation I had yesterday, on that podcast, I then had like more clear steps to then take, and so hopefully Jordan kind of shares some tips around investing, but any finance or money tips again that can help and serve people.
It's always good. That's true. I think financial knowledge is the one thing that is a lot of people lack. We all lack financial knowledge because it's not something that you actually have class from grade 1 or year 1 to year 11 and into unless you choose to, you really don't have much financial knowledge unless you choose to actually gain it yourself. So yeah, it should be a good one.
It should, man. Awesome. Well, guys, we will leave it there for today. Again, go and check out all the links in the description, or below this video that I will add to. I think it's the mini guide and the app that Karon's going to send all the links to, but also his Instagram, his website. Go and check out his work. Amazing work. I'll leave links there as well to subscribe to the podcast, to connect with myself and Leroy on social as well. And we will be back next week for another episode with Jordan talking about funny and finances.
Nice.
Awesome. So have a good week, guys, and talk to you then.
Take it easy.